Hi. So in class, we've been talking a lot about word problems, and we're going to continue to practice and practice and practice. Sometimes we'll call them word problems, sometimes we'll call them application problems, sometimes we'll call them problem-solving problems. So this section, this video, is to give you a plan for figuring out how to approach problems that you find particularly confusing. These are the 5 steps that we've written down a couple of different times in your notes. We've also been referring to them on the board each class. So what I want to just reiterate for you is that it is incredibly important to read the problem for different information. So the first time you read a problem, you're just simply asking yourself, what do I need to figure out? The second time we read the problem, we're trying to figure out what are the relationships among the unknowns, among the variables. And then the last time we read the problem, we're trying to determine if everything that we did in these steps, in fact, answers the first question. Now, together, let's look at example 1 in section 1.7. Follow along with me in your book on page 27. That way you can see exactly what I'm looking at. Okay, we're going to keep the steps up in the top part of the screen here, just as reference as we go through each part of this problem, trying to get a solution. All right, so I'm going to read the problem once through. Amanda has $23 more than Yael. Together, they have $187. How much money does each have? The choices for Yael's amount are $72, $78, and $82. To start the problem, I'm going to read specifically to figure out what I'm trying to figure out. So when I read this problem, I get some information. I know who we're talking about. I know one person's 23, something about 187. But this sentence is really what I'm going to focus on. How much money does each have? So what I'm trying to determine and what I'll note for myself is I'm looking for how much money does Amanda have, right? And how much money does Yael have? And that's all that step 1 is asking us to do. Step 2 is asking us to assign variables to each of our unknowns. So for the amount of money that Amanda has, I'm just going to call it A. And for the amount of money that Yael has, I'm going to call this Y. Now I'm going to read the problem again to really determine what the relationships are between A and Y. Okay. Now to do this, I'm going to take the word problem and make it just a little bit bigger so that I might highlight, and I'm also going to put this out of the way here, okay? So that I can highlight specific words and try to build relationships with them, okay? So let's look. We've got Amanda has 23 more than Yael. So I'm going to replace Amanda with A. I'm also going to replace Yael with Y. I notice this more than here. That's going to mean add. And the 23 is added then to Yael. This has, that's going to indicate equals. So the first equation that I've put together just from this first sentence is A equals 23 plus Y. I'm going to copy that down here. A equals 23 plus Y. Now I'm going to build an equation for the second sentence. Together they have $187. So the word together to me implies addition, and this 187 is the total. The together that we're talking about is A and Y, and their total is $187. Okay, so now what I have is something called a system of equations. I've got two different equations to describe what's been going on in these two first sentences. In my head, though, I've got to keep this in mind. How much money does each have? Ultimately, what I'm trying to figure out is how much money Amanda has and how much money Yael has. Now I'm going to spend some time solving these equations. There are a couple of different things that I can think about here. What I like to think about now is that I can say that this value, A, is or equal to this expression, right? So 23 plus y directly represents A. So wherever I see A written, like here, I can write, instead of A, 23 plus y. So you'll notice that when I rewrote this equation, I took this 23 plus y and I rewrote it for the A here. Everything else, every other symbol just came straight down. So 187 was not changed, the equal was not changed, this addition sign did not change, and this y did not change. The only thing I replaced was the A here. Okay, now I can remember how to solve equations. I can combine like terms. These two terms are the same. So when I combine them, let's see, I've got 187 equals 23 plus y and y makes 2y. I'm also going to remember that I need to subtract 23 from both sides of the equation in order to get the numbers on one side of the equation and the variables on the other side. So I do the subtraction, I get 164 equals 2y. Now in order to isolate the y, in order to get it by itself, I'm going to divide by 2 on the right side. And whatever I do to one side, I've got to do to the other, and so I'm going to divide by 2 on the other side. So my final solution for y is 82. Now what I need to do is make sure that my entire problem has been solved. I'm moving into step 5. I'm going to reread the problem and determine if my answer satisfies what I'm actually looking for. As I reread the problem, Amanda has 23 more than Yael. Together they have 187. How much money does each have? I realize that I've only solved for Yael, so I still need to solve for Amanda. I can do this of one of two ways. I can either take 187 and subtract 82 to get A, or I can take 23 and add it to 82 to get A. I don't know about you, but addition is often slightly easier for me than subtraction, so I chose to add 23 and 82 to get 105, Amanda's total as 105. What's important now is that I check my work. I want to ensure that the numbers that I actually calculated for Amanda and Yael go back and satisfy the conditions that the problem gave to me. So what I'm going to do to check is add Yael, 82, to Amanda, 105, and I'm hoping that it'll give me 187. Once I take this equation and plug in the parts down here, so 187 equals Amanda's 105, Yael's 82, I'm going to add these two together and determine whether this side is equal to that side. It's true that 187 equals 187, so our solution is that Amanda has $105 and Yael has $82. And don't forget the units. Now what I'd like to show you is how you might solve this problem over a domain. You'll notice that at the end of this problem, we have our choices of 72, 78, and 82 for Yael's money. So what we might do is, rather than solving this large system of equations or solving the equation all the way down as we did before, is we might use this domain to plug in and to determine whether the equation is equal. This is very similar to section 1.3. We're just putting it in word problem form. So just like before, what I showed you, I'm going to use this expression for A and plug in or substitute that in for A in this equation. So you'll remember back in 1.3, when we were given a domain or numbers to plug in for a given variable, we made this chart to help organize. So I've taken each of the possible values for Yael and listed them in the first column. Then I'm going to plug those values in for this equation here, and then determine whether I've found a solution for this problem. Now what you can see is I have copied this equation down throughout the column. The 187 hasn't changed, the 23 hasn't changed. What I did do was combine these two y's, so I've got two of them, and then plugged in each of these values in for y. This first equation simplifies to 167. So I've determined that 72 is not a solution for this problem. The second equation simplifies to 179, which again is not equal to this 187, so we do not have a solution in 78. We do, however, have a solution in this last problem. When I simplify this side of the equation, I get 187. So this whole equation then is true, which means that 82 is a solution for this problem. From here, we're going to just finish solving the whole problem, i.e. figure out how much money Amanda has, in the same way that I showed you before. I'm going to take this 82, plug it into this equation here, just because it looks easier to me. So add 23 and 82. And once I have done that, I'll have the solution for Amanda's amount. I've taken this equation, plugged in 82, which gives me a value of 105. My final step is to check to make sure that my solutions for Amanda and Yael do indeed add up to 187. So I've written here Amanda plus Yael needs to be 187. Yael is 82. Amanda is 105. When I add them together, I do indeed get 187. So my answer checks out.